Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I'm with Liz Trotter, and our guest today is Mike Callahan. This is Smart Business Moves.
Hey,
Woohoo!
Mike.
Hey guys, how you doing? Long time no talk.
I
Liz,
know. I feel like it's been a long time since you were on here.
Yeah,
Super excited.
I can't imagine I'd actually say I miss public speaking, but it's been a long time with COVID and everything. So I know that's where we first met, and definitely glad to be back on here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has. It's been a haul. You know, this is September. We're in a whole new month here. The first.
Yes.
Is that crazy?
We are. But you know what? This is now a year and a half that we've been doing this, isn't it?
It has
I think
been.
it's like 18 months now. And we're only doing it twice a week now. We used to do it every day. Do you remember that, Tom?
Every doggone day. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. All right, Denise. Look at Denise laughing at the time because we were an hour early and she wasn't prepared on Monday. We went early.
Yeah, I think you guys had everybody confused yesterday. It was a little off, or 2 days ago. So
yeah, on Monday we announced it, but apparently not well enough.
No, it was a good one too. So Riley, very impressive there. Very, very impressive.
Isn't he? Can you believe he's 19 years old?
I've met him a couple times in person. Just a complete stud. Like what you see is what you get.
Great. Yeah, I love him so much. I'm so glad I found him. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. His dad's great. I mean, it's just an amazing little family. I can't wait to see what the younger brother / son does.
Yeah, Gage. Yeah, he's a really good kid too. I've met him once or twice. So yeah, just a great job Jonathan, Tiffany have done with the kids for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's not surprising. You know, you see these business owners that are doing a great job. It's not surprising that they're good parents as well. So what do we talk about today? Well, first, catch us up, Tom. Tell us about Delta and
it's out there, and I don't know. I hear a lot of people are concerned about it. Hospitals are crowded. I don't know from 1 week to the next where that's going to go. What have you heard?
Go ahead, Mike.
I would say it's a tough one. It's I've been trying to honestly avoid the news, but a lot of conferences, speaking engagements are being canceled. They're even going virtual. It's a tough time, but I think this kind of gets into our talk a little bit today around employee retention, because unfortunately or fortunately in the service industry right now, we are on the front line. We are going in and out of these homes. We're servicing the outside of these homes. So it's something as business owners I think we need to be aware of, and how do we handle that? I had a really interesting conversation with a young lady that does the recruitment and onboarding for Amazon. They're putting up a couple of ones in upstate New York, and their flexibility around COVID is really, really interesting. Obviously they're huge companies, but you can actually call in and there's nothing against you. Like literally, if you don't feel comfortable coming to work, if there's an outbreak or something, it's a free paid pass basically. So there's a lot of shifts going on in these companies around this, and how do we make it safe and comfortable for our employees to still want to come to work?
Yeah. And that has a lot of implications, down the road, because I don't know if it's ever going to go back to the way it used to be. I don't think it will. And things like, perfect attendance in schools, I've been reading is really being questioned or being looked at as a bad idea, that they're looking at making that go away, certainly for COVID reasons. But even after that, it's like, is it really cool for somebody to have perfect attendance? Because certainly they went to school a few days with, feeling bad and spreading germs and so forth. Same with the workplace. I know a lot of companies. I know at Castle Keepers, we kind of have, we don't have, I mean, we track attendance, but there's no penalty for being out of compliance if you're out because you're sick, especially, if you've got COVID. You just can't take that risk.
We've really had to modify stuff because of that too, with how do you really want to deal with it if you're saying anything about people being sick and turns out they have COVID? Like, you definitely don't want to see a penalty going there.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Tom. You just put on the screen there. We're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the residential cleaning, obviously going into people's homes. I know, Mike, you don't work a lot. You work with cleaning companies, you work with landscape. I guess landscaping doesn't have to deal with this particular issue. This is more of
Not necessarily. I would say it's almost a 50-50 split between cleaning and lawn care companies now, as we've kind of grown in the cleaning industry. But yeah, the lawn care industry isn't seeing it as bad. But part of the issues is the employees. So most cleaning companies traditionally are running solo cleaners now after COVID, unless you have two solos meeting it for like a deep clean or a top to bottom. Where your lawn care companies now, you've got 3 to 4 gentlemen, ladies that sit in the same vehicle. So that's kind of the converse of it. That tradition, most cleaning companies, unless you're doing commercial, it's usually only one individual in the car or two. But you've got 4 or 5 guys or girls packed into a tight space, especially in the spring and the fall with the windows closed traditionally. So they're having their own transportation issues there.
We should real quick, Tom, before we go any further, have Mike at least give a quick intro, because some people might not know who he is. We haven't had him on in a long time.
Yeah,
Mike,
no
why don't you
problem.
take a couple minutes and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so started out literally freshman year in high school. Started running a lawn care and snow removal business just to pay for the car insurance. After 5 years in college, through a business degree, I had 3, almost 4 full-time crews in the upstate New York area, and then kind of hit that fork in the road where do we go entrepreneur or do we go the corporate route with all my buddies? And at that point, I was making significantly more money than I would have with the corporate route. So obviously, that's kind of the route I went with, the entrepreneur route. But the biggest thing that I found, at least in college, is no one really taught you how to run a business. And the idea of what they taught was really you being the single point of failure. So this business was built around you. You were doing the estimating, you were doing the billing, and no one, and even the gentleman teaching a lot of the classes was literally running a broken business, not looking back at it. And then all my people I looked up to in the local area were literally working 7 days a week. They were never at their kids' hockey games or soccer games. But that was how you ran a business. So I didn't know any better. And then eventually that business ran to a divorce. Got married the first time, no kids, thank God. But wife came home and just said, "Listen, literally, I'm leaving you. This business runs your life." So obviously hitting rock bottom at that point was either figure out how to fix it or get rid of it. I thought, well, it can't get any worse. Let's try to fix it. And literally went on the internet and tried to figure out like how to get your life back from your business. And I found Marketing Automations, the platform we were working on at that point. One night I bought Keep with no technology background. And we just literally, no intentions to do anything we're doing right now to help other people. But it was my journey to going from 100 hours a week, literally 7 days a week, to 3 to 5 hours to an absentee owner, 30 days a pop. And we went out and systematically hired the best consultants via different types of automations, like integrating text messages or drip campaigns or whatever it was. We went out and just found the experts. And, it was a 5 to 6 year process, but eventually that business ran itself. And now right near the end of that, we started a company called SimpleGrowth, where we help cleaning businesses automate their sales process, their employee recruiting, training, onboarding, and repetitive tasks. And right near the end of that, about 2.5 years ago, the lawn care business actually got acquired. So I exited that business, and now we're working full time with SimpleGrowth. So probably I'd say somewhere between 650 and 700 service business, and about 50% of our cleaning businesses right now that we're helping.
Wow.
So this is the SimpleGrowth website. We'll talk about this more a little bit later, but if anybody wants to check it out, I'll go ahead and drop the URL in chat.
That's good. So who is looking to hire your company, Mike? Why would they need automation? Is that what I heard?
Yes, there was really 2 separate things we do. The main thing is automations. And then, to be honest, a few people in the early days came in and we went to go in and automate their software. So we automate multiple platforms, software platforms. So basically, some people are coming to us and their systems in their software were so broken and a mess that we're like, ethically, we would love to take your money and automate this, but we can't ethically do this. This thing is like, we're going to 10x a massive problem. This thing is going to come tumbling down, because traditionally, a company will come to us making $500,000 to $750,000 traditionally, and within a year or two, we'll blast them past that $1 million mark because we overcome those growth hurdles through process and systems that are automated. But as we'll probably talk about at some point, there's 3 major bottlenecks to growth. And obviously employees is one of the big ones, but it's cash flow and knowing your numbers and having these systems together. So if you don't have a production rate based estimating system around number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, pets, dirt code, whatever that looks like, however you're putting that together, or in a way to compensate your employees, whether it's based on budgeted hours or just hourly or percentage of both, it's really tough to scale that business. So we originally started with the automations list, but now we also help implement those systems in a software system. So
Nice.
that's traditionally what we do. But people will come to us literally similar to my story, and they're like, I know there's got to be a better way. I'm not seeing my significant other. My kids don't know who I am. And one of the biggest ones is a gentleman came to us and said, "Hey, Mike, I just want to thank you. I went to my kid's football game last night." I said, "Oh, that's great, Dave." And he goes, "No, I don't think you understand. It's his senior year in high school, and I've never been to his football game. But the process and the automations actually allowed me to be comfortable enough to leave my business and actually enjoy that time." So that's when I realized, I think we had something. Yes, we're making money, but on a higher level, like we literally, my mission is to help business owners like myself take their life back from the business. So if they're suffering like I was, or they're about to hit those issues, we can help them. And that's traditionally where people come to us. It's not a hard sell. We have a solution for their pain point. If it's not a good fit, we point them in the right direction.
So you're automating businesses, you're helping them be more successful, more profitable, but you're also creating a better lifestyle for the people who run those businesses, maybe saving some relationships, right?
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, and that's just one of many that we've gotten some candid feedback. So that's at the end of the day, yes, we want to make money. We want to make sure everybody's taking care of the team. But we really, at this level, it's more about just helping other service business owners, because no one told me in the early days that that's the wrong way of doing it. And I think today's mentality of you got to go out and grind, you got to hustle. Like, yeah, that's great in the first couple of years or a few months. Like, you've got to put the work in. Just similar to you guys doing the Facebook Live every day. You got to do it to get going. But that's not scalable. You can't continue that forever. It's just like a badge of honor. I had a talk with Mike Callahan at Profit First, and he talks about in his book Clockwork, when he was talking to his buddy, he was like, "Yeah, I only slept 2 hours last night." He's like, "Oh, that's nothing. I only slept 1 hour last night." And then and you kind of look back at that, and we've all done that, and you're like, this is insanity. Like, this thing is built on my back. Like, we can't do this. We need to build a team and actually leverage them. So I think that's kind of what we're going to get into later today. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it's about.
And, we're going to jump in. We're going to talk about, employee retention here in just a minute. But one thing you touched upon earlier that I think is important that I just want to swing back to is you guys do the automations, the technical computer part, if you will, the technology part. And that's necessary, but not sufficient in a lot of cases. You have to, at the same time, do process changes and get the numbers right. And there's things inside of your business that you need to do in addition or in concert with the technology to get the outcomes that can increase, lifestyle, be more profitable and save relationships. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's spot on for sure. But before you scale a business, you got to just make sure it's foundationally set financially and your systems are set. I mean, that's the scary thing. Like, most business owners, and we've worked with companies up to 19 or 20 million in the cleaning industry. It's amazing that the scale of a business, $1 million or $2 million, like, how do you throw it against the wall consistently and have it still work? I mean, it's Russian roulette with your financial future. But once you get that dialed in, very similar like the dashboards of Made Central, you can see exactly where you're making money, you're losing money. That clarity, at least for me, is what you need to start to get, and then you can automate that thing and grow it and scale.
Yeah, I really appreciate, Mike, that something that you said a little bit earlier was, we want to, follow our passion and build this thing, and this is what we care about. But bottom line is, we do need to make money. We do need to be profitable. I think a lot of times people think it's an if this or that, right? This or that, this or that. No, you can have both of those things, and you really need to. it's not okay to be building a business that you're all passionate about if you're going bankrupt and you're destroying your relationships and your life. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that.
And I don't, I mean, I'm happy to be vulnerable, because trust me, if there's a mistake to be made, I've either gotten lucky enough to get it or, figured out how made that mistake and fixed it. But I mean, literally on the back end of that divorce, I had always been like methodical every day, running the numbers at least once a week at the longest period. But I had a really good idea where the business was, and a lot of business owners, and I made this mistake after the divorce. I was in a low spot. I started running the business by the bank account balance, and I knew at the scale of the business at that point, if I had around $100,000 or plus in the bank, like we were good. That was the normal liquid cash flow of the business for operating. Problem was Tammy and Christine in the office had been with me for 8 or 9 years, and they were really good at getting receivables. So, and we started processing credit cards as well. So the money was coming in before the bill. So literally, we had around $100,000 in the bank. It wasn't until November, December in that season where I had realized, before we switched to the next seasonality of snow removal, that we were upside down $70,000, and it was too late to fix it. We had a really good winter, and we hustled and we grind, and we cut some of those fixed costs that we could, and we got through it. But that was, I mean, it's a lesson to be heard, because I mean, I've always run those financials. We always still do now on a daily basis. But if you're running your business by that bank account balance, it's a scary, scary place to be. And the first time I'd ever done it, it bit me. So, that's just, it can happen to anybody. And that's where I think we're very passionate when we go to help build out these pricing, or basically not even pricing, but production rate based estimating systems in the software. Does it actually make sense when you start running those numbers? Are you actually profitable? If you're losing $40 for every time you go to clean this house on a reoccurring basis, you might as well drop 2 20s off the door and go to the next one, because that's what's happening. So we raise the price, not emotionally, or that's it. I mean, that's where it's at.
All right. Well, I am writing down the date that we are having this, because I'm going to go back and I'm going to get this video off of Facebook Live, and I'm posting it in all my groups. Do you know how many people I have to fight with about this idea that you have to be watching your numbers all the time, y'all? Like when you first start, you have to do it daily, because you don't even know what they are. You don't even understand them. You got to get into a rhythm, and at least you got to be looking at them weekly. So thank you. Thank you for that, Mike.
And a lot of times, if you take your eye off of them long enough, you can find yourself in a situation where you can't pay the bills. Solvency's in question.
Yep.
But even if it doesn't,
upside down,
even if it doesn't get that bad, if you take your numbers off of them for a little bit, and then you go back and you look at it and you go, "Oh my God, think of all the money I just lost, or all the money I could have made that I didn't." Yeah. So, I mean, and that's really the whole point of this. There's a lot of folks in this industry who judge success by how many employees they have or how many homes they clean, and all that's nice, but at the end of the day, we're doing this to be profitable, to create opportunities for the people that work for us, provide good service, build value. And if we're not being profitable, we can't do any of that. So
it's hard to make that benchmark too, Tom, because you see this whole big fleet of shiny new cars that are cleaning all these houses, this crazy office. They're posting all these pictures on Facebook and Instagram. I will tell you, when you get behind this, underneath the levels of some of these companies, that what you think you see it and you're comparing yourself against is not actuality. So I think, honestly, forget your competition. Do you know your numbers, and just make it consistent. And you want to make money, and you've got to. And especially with the labor market right now, that cost of labor, which is most service business is going to be at least 60% of your overhead. You've got to get that right. And being transparent with those employees about the wins and losses financially, more of an open book management to an extent, at least with your office staff, and maybe not your field staff as much. But I mean, I think that's also important, because like at SimpleGrowth, pretty much to the penny every month, my team knows where we're winning, where we're losing, and what's going on. But that builds a culture that you can't buy.
And there's really no excuses now for not knowing your numbers. I mean, if you roll the clock back, Liz, if we roll the clock back 20 years, it was a whole lot harder to.
Oh my gosh, so much harder.
But the technology has gotten so much better, and it's available to everybody now. It used to be that you had to be like a publicly traded company to have the type of technology where you could, generate the points, but we all have access to the tools to do this. And that's part of it. The other part is, making a commitment to do the things in your business to actually, generate those numbers and then, use them to make smart business moves. But that's a big part of what Mike's business is about. I guess that's kind of at the core of what your business is about, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, that's it. And it doesn't matter. And it's weird going from the service industry, just recently exiting it. We've just hired, we've got Dylan on our team. We've got Chad on our team. And we've got Virginia, who just joined our team. All of them are 7-figure business owners. They've been there. The wounds are still fresh. And it's amazing because, I mean, what caused them to be successful and actually be able to sell their business and exit have been the same common denominators. And it doesn't matter if it's cleaning, commercial or residential, another service industry like lawn care. It's all, the foundational parts are all the same. They really are.
Yeah. I'm just making a good point too.
Yeah.
I got stuck reading there. I had a question for Mike. Oh, well, I'm sure it'll come back to me.
No, it's okay.
In a minute here. Well, it's okay for you, but I wanted my answer.
Like I said earlier, as long as I'm not following after you on stage in a live event with those crazy speaking skills, we are good. It's easy.
Oh,
easy
please,
today.
please. Gosh, what was it I wanted to ask? Okay, what were we talking about right before that popped up? It was past so Tom, I know what it was. So Tom, you talk a lot about, people think of profit as a dirty word. And now going back to this idea of employee retention, you're seeing a lot this new idea that we're not paying our employees enough, period. No matter what we're paying them. I don't know, a couple of days ago, I saw in one of the Facebook groups, somebody was saying that they can't get anybody they can't hire anybody, and they pay $17.50 an hour, which I think is a decent wage. In my state where I live, that's above the living wage. And people were just slamming this lady because, hey, if you're not going to pay a decent wage, how can you expect anyone to come work for you? She was like, hey, my profit margin is only like 14%. And they're like, that's ridiculous. You expect to get 14% profit and you're only paying $17.50? That's ridiculous. I'm like, this is like this new wave. How are you doing?
The rules have changed. And I think like just dropping off my little one, Rory, who just turned 5 to kindergarten orientation today. We moved out of the main part of the city, but maybe a smaller lakefront area. But I mean, literally the 2 main intersections I went through to go to school, there are signs plastered on all 4 corners, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 sign-on bonuses, all these wages, text, email, QR code, whatever that is. But the thing that really struck me is as I got off the intersection and I'm going by, it was a manufacturing plant. So the main entrance, there's a main entrance, but the employee parking lot, there's got to be, I'd say a couple hundred cars in this parking lot. They've got recruitment signs. Like, how does your employee actually, and we're talking around retention, how does that employee feel driving by that sign? And this was a $5,000 sign-on bonus for all positions. Like at some point, you've got to be mentally defeated. Like, well, why wouldn't I just leave this company, go to another one that's doing it, pick up a quick $5,000 for doing absolutely nothing. So I think
or go and say, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about quitting and taking the $5,000 bonus down the street. But if you guys get your checkbook out, maybe I'll stay. I wonder if that happens.
Those conversations are happening. I mean, we had those conversations in our company. Like, I mean, we'd have people say, hey, if I'm looking for this, I got this offer down the streets, and if you don't match it, I'm out of here. But those are decisions as well. Like, is that a good move? Do you allow that employee to be in control of that relationship, or are they on the right seat on the right bus and we can move them up and actually have them in a position that actually warrants that? And we've done it several times in the service business we had to good effect and bad effect. But one of the gentlemen that really rings out is, okay, we basically had our techs, and then we had like a lead tech, we called it, that ran the crew. And we'll call him Bill, but like Bill was really good. He was a really good technician. Bill was not a good lead tech. He was not, he was managing, he couldn't train. He wasn't, and we tried to train him to train. It wasn't his skill set, and quality control outside of what he was doing was not his skill set. So we ended up having to sit down and have a really tough conversation. Like, this is not for you. Like, either we need to bring you down here, or your best fit may be down the street with that competitor. I think that's the other scary thing right now in this market. Everybody is desperate. I mean, there's Facebook ads in the college towns around us. We'll hire you on the spot. Well, I think the most, and maybe we'll talk some numbers around hiring a bad hire, but that can be even worse than not having any employees, because those really good employees right now, what you're doing is just killing the morale, and you're actually basically forcing them to go look for another job eventually. So that's the scary part. You got to get it right up front before you actually create the retention.
Not only does the bad hire leave, but they have the potential of driving some of your good hires away too.
Yeah.
Yep.
We just talked about that on Monday too. Talk to us a little bit more about that, Mike. You're talking about have to get it right up front. What do you mean about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, let me just see here. I've got something on my other screen. I might have to be able, can I pull this up real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead and just hit the screen share button down at the bottom.
This is the first one on this one here. So we'll see how this goes. Thought I had just about seen every screen share there is. There we go. So I just grabbed a couple slides here, if you can see it. There you go. So kind of just to do some justice to this picture, what this is really, we've got, this was several years ago in the lawn care company. So this is actually what about $35,000, $40,000 of direct mailing looks like in about 20 to 25 days. But the main thing that scared me before we did this is we needed to know how to actually take in all that work and actually have a team to do it, because worst thing we could do is go out and double or triple in size and literally get destroyed on Google and Facebook and Yelp and not be able to justify that. So as we were looking at it here, the main things that I was looking at is basically the bottlenecks to fast growth. And I think right now, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this, is if you figure out the staffing right now, this is the best time to go out and grow your business, because right now a lot of service businesses are retracting. They're not growing. And we're talking to a lot of them. I mean, probably several hundred cleaning business a month we're talking to right now. And the majority of them are retracting. But man, if we could figure out these bottlenecks, this is a time to go out and actually dominate your local market.
And why do you think they're retracting, Mike?
Just that, it's labor. They can't find the cleaning techs to do it. They want to grow. They want to go out, but they can't figure it out. But foundationally, what we figured out, at least in my business and the business we work with, is really going out and growing fast without the right people is the biggest issue. And this was before the COVID and labor issues, but now it's just been compounded. And we talked about it earlier. We need to know our numbers and we need cash flow. So if we've got the numbers and the cash flow thing right, we're ready to scale. We just got to figure out the people problem. And we talked about the cost of a bad hire. So I ran some actual numbers from my company of how this negatively affected us. But we got direct costs. Obviously, you've got your help ads, your screening, interview, training, bonuses, raises. But what we don't look at, and what I didn't look at least, is how could a bad hire be 2 to 3 times a person's salary in a year? Like, that seems absurd. I mean, I understand the direct cost, but then I actually took a look under the hood at some of the really awful hires we've had. And when we sold, we had 18 or 19 vehicles out on the road. So you figure that's a 2-person crew. That's a 35 to 40 person, size company. So not small, not huge, but big enough. But those indirect costs, like that lower customer satisfaction, we started getting dinged hard on social media, and it started to affect the morale of the office. We had customer cancellations. So it was great. We were pumping all these people through the sales funnel, but as many were coming in the top, they were dropping out of the bottom. So your client acquisition cost, what it costs you to acquire a customer, maybe you're spending $100 to $120 to get a client. You want to recover that, and they call it a client lifetime value. So what's that client lifetime value? So the average client we had was about 3.5 to 4 years. So when you're taking that projected client lifetime value and shrinking it down to 3 to 6 months, depending on your acquisition cost in the market, you may not even be breaking even on that yet. Mm-hmm. And then the loss in productivity and the loss in team morale. So Liz, you hit on it, and Tom, you did as well. So not only is it a bad hire bad for just that person, but now it's starting to affect the morale of your A players, and it's bringing them down to B or C's, and they're leaving, and they may be bringing your other key players with them to your competitors. So the numbers I came up with, believe it or not, and then the other things that we're looking at is damage. So in our company, people stopped, like the bad hires wouldn't check the oil in the mornings. We ended up blowing engines, vehicles, or mowers. They would like just damage people's clients' property. So we started to really add this all up, and this was earth-shattering to me.
Ooh.
A couple of the extremely bad hires, I ballparked about $100,000 to $125,000 in cost.
Wow.
And I was like, maybe we should just kind of pump the brakes and kind of fix this problem before we go in, because that extra money we got in the bank is going to disappear.
And how much did you say you had in that marketing effort? 50 grand?
Yeah, so it's about like 40 to 50,000. The highest I think we ever did was about 70,000. So unlike the cleaning industry, it's very seasonal. So you literally have a month and a half to get it done. So that's where the automations that we've built specifically for the cleaning industry are different, but it can handle unbelievable volume coming in, especially like around the holiday seasons. People are looking for those one-time deep cleans in that, or the stove and fridge upsell. So but I mean, it's just perspective-wise, in a normal cleaning business, that probably would have been spread out over 10 or 12 months. But in that industry, you've got a month and a half to hit it, and hit it hard. So we needed to basically, and it's interesting, you had Jonathan Potoshnik there on yesterday or Monday. I actually flew out to Jonathan's company where he was doing $10 million a year in residential services. And there was only one thing I wanted to know from Jonathan. How do I actually create a workflow in my office to handle that volume? And what does that look like inside of software? And what's the process and system? And that was the one thing I walked out. I didn't want to know anything else but that. There was a lot of takeaways, but I was like, I'm leaving with that one thing, and that's the only thing I want to know. And that was right before we went to this. And Jonathan, I should have taken his total advice. He goes, well, wait 6, 12 months, try it and get used to that flow, and then dump in. Well, me being me, I was like, well, let's just throw all the money at it. Let's just make this happen. I thought Tammy and Christine and Paul in the office were literally going to kill me, but we got through it. And that's kind of what happened. And the main thing I kind of wanted to at least share with us, and we can dive in some more back and forth chat about this, but I wanted to at least provide a little value for people watching this live or recorded with basically 3 low-cost, high-return hiring strategies. So interviews that screen for values alignment. So one of the things that we believed in, and one of our core values at Callahan's, was we do what we say we'll do. So we're going to go out, and maybe Christine or Tammy are going to do a pre-interview several questions. But one of them I do remember was, how do you feel when somebody says they're going to call you back and they don't call you back? And we would just let them go. But if the person said, I absolutely hate it, like I always follow through, that's a culture alignment. Now, you may not be the best cleaning technician. You may have never cleaned. I can teach that skill set, but I can't teach a cultural and values alignment. And along that, we want to have our job descriptions, whether online, printed, through an app, mobile, whatever that looks like. We want to have job descriptions that actually fit that culture and the value systems that we've built. Very similar, like the right person on the right seat on the bus. You may be the best cleaning technician, but if you don't fit this values alignment and culture, you're not the cleaner for my company. So we're going to send them down the street. Even if market's really tight for labor, we got to get this right at first. And that's okay. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Explain that one a little bit more. Like job descriptions that focus on culture. What would that sound like? Like, give me a line on that job description. You're going to show me one.
It would look something like this. So this was from back in the day. Probably had like 20, maybe 30 employees at this point. A little clip here, but we had a video. And the video, and this is probably 6 or 7 years old. So this was something we've been incorporating video forever, but it gave you a taste of what we were about. And the guys have got their hands up, they're kind of riled up, but we're talking about what we're doing, and we're talking about every position in the company, and we're talking about what they're doing on a daily basis, what's expected, what's not expected, and the pay rates. So right off the bat, we're qualifying them here. And you can see up top, it's the lifestyle you desire. So that was something I really took into the lawn care business when that tragedy kind of happened with the divorce. It was kind of our thing, our mission is we wanted to give our clients their lifestyle desire. So if they didn't want to worry about taking care of their home while they're at that football game or ballet class, that's great. But we also, on the flip side of that, use that as a value for our internal staff. So if your goal was to get out by 3 p.m. and spend some time with your family or sports team or softball or whatever that is, that's great. And that's where we created instituted a piece rate pay system. So a lot of times in the cleaning industry, that's called pay per performance. But we've been doing this probably for about 15 years. So they get paid on the budgeted time with a quality constraint. So this video overlaid that. But to answer your question, Liz, what are we looking for? What we'll be doing, what you'll need to be successful, where you'll stand out. And that cultural alignment really came out in that video. I don't know if that makes sense. Oh, did we lose Liz?
Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble with my headset.
No problem.
So it's a job description, but this is like a marketing tool to recruit the same people who buy into the same values as your company.
Yeah, and once you got to the end of that video, you knew what we stood for. And not only did we show you all the good, but at the end we showed you the bad. Because let's face it, if you're in the service industry, there's going to be some long days. You're going to be on your hands and knees. So we weeded you out at the end too and kind of qualified you. So you knew what you were getting into right off the bat. And if this is kind of the culture that you wanted to get into, then you were a great fit. But I will tell you that video drew the right people in for the most part and kind of excluded some of the people. Like, whoa, wait a minute, we're going to actually be doing this. And there's a picture in here, a clip of a guy in a snow sleet storm who must have been out for like 10 hours shoveling sidewalks. He looked like a wet dog. He had a smile on his face, but it looked miserable. And we just said, hey, if you're going to be part of this part of the team, you can be doing this. If you're in this part of the summer crew, the guy was like literally trimming a hedgerow that was like a quarter mile long in 90-degree heat. The guy looked like he was going to die. But we just showed the worst of the worst too. So we qualified him out as well.
So when Mike's talking about job descriptions, this is really like the recruiting ad part of it. It's a job description, explains what the job is, but not to be confused with the things that, say, Society Human Resources Management puts forward as a job description, which is a legalese type, very plain. It's not a sales piece. I've seen people do that, and I would suspect that no one would say that's best practices, where they take like the legal job description and use that to recruit with, because you really aren't selling.
No,
about
the tough part right now too is that values alignment. I've got another slide I'll show you here. Well, how we actually did that as well, and it was clipped from that video. But the thing is that it used to be old school. It kind of worked like, you must have a car, you must do this, you must do that. And honestly, if I was to re-put that ad out, some of those different headers that I would put in there would be more geared of what are we doing for you as the employee, not what you're doing for me. Because basically the millennials and Gen Z their fit to it is completely different. I believe it was Gen Z. The stats are going to look at 5 times more reviews of your company as a place to work and social reviews of your clients before they're really entertain working with you. So you've got to, like the glass doors and things like that, we've got to be really conscious of when we have these employees, if we let them go or how we treat them, because it's no longer siloed. Like the world is going to know if you did them wrong. And we've got to have some kind of standardized selection process that's going to speak to the fit and the alignment, and basically building that virtual bench. You can't go out and recruit anymore when you need somebody. You need to have literally that bench stacked like a sports team. And if somebody's acting goofy or get a bunch of work, you need to be able to replace that person or add another person immediately. And that's tough right now. So we got it. Like recruiting is basically its own position, almost like a sales position. We've got to go out and sell our company to these people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Much more than we ever have had to in the past. And it was always a bit of a sales position. I mean, we had to sell them on our job because it's not the most glamorous job on the planet, right? But not like nowadays. Now they have so many options. Why do they want to clean toilets for you?
Exactly.
They're doing so many other things.
And kind of what this slide here is, we want to hire, train, and fire to the core values. So slow to hire, quick to fire. And it's still got to be some of the, in my opinion, at least still part of the process right now. And even SimpleGrowth isn't immune to this. We're up to 17 or 18 full-time employees. And I will tell you, there's been some bad fits that within a month or two of training, we literally we ripped the Band-Aid off. We had to. There's no way we can double in size each year and not have the core group and that cultural fit. But kind of what you're seeing here is that we took a sales pipeline and flipped it on its side and basically replicated what we do in our sales process and actually use that to go out and sell our business to future applicants. And it's not only enough once we hire them, we've got to wow and basically align with that culture and reinforce it. And it's an ugly place, but quarterly reviews, in my opinion, at least, let's face it, like employees like structure. They need structure. They may tell you they don't like it, but they want structure. And then we want to celebrate the wins. So like in the office, when the girls in the office would make a sale over the phone, we'd ring like a bell. But it's something that everybody knew. It was a gathering cry, and everybody kind of rallied around that. So there's certain things that I think we can do that really don't cost us a lot of money, but we need to reinforce and continue that positivity in the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you finding it any harder, Mike, now that, you said it yourself, so many of the businesses now are going solo. So there isn't nearly the interaction with team members, people in the office, or other people. Are you struggling with that?
Yeah, it's tough. And especially a lot of the office staff now are all completely remote. There's somebody there getting them out in the morning, but if it's a larger multi-million-dollar company, a lot of these individuals are basically demanding to be working remote. Now, whether you let them do it or not, that's a whole different story. But I think if we can do it with social distancing or wherever we're comfortable with, getting the team together outside, picnics, whatever that looks like, we still need to have that piece. And that's been missing the last 18 months in most companies. One of the things, Jason Cupp is a big consultant in the financial industry for the green space, but in his business, he used to always talk about having a stacked fridge for like breakfast burritos and food and things like that. But it gave those employees something as an added perk. But some of the side effects, the story he told me once was he had a gentleman, he caught it on the camera, that the guy literally emptied out like half the fridge when no one was around one night. And, he was concerned that it was theft, but being Jason, he's Colby certified there. I know you guys talked about that Monday, but Jason's a pretty cool cat. So he pulled the guy in and said, hey, like, is there anything I need to know? I just noticed that you basically emptied the fridge last night. We've refilled it. But the guy was taking all his money and helping pay for medical procedures for somebody in his family. So he didn't have the money to put food on the table. So those little things that you can do to build a culture and those little additional perks that you and I may not think that are big, they can be game changers. So, and I think just sitting down and having open communications like Jason did are really, really important. That's going to mean a lot more than money. And most of these millennial workers now that I've seen, once you hit a certain threshold, it's not about the money. It's about the cultural alignment and things like that. And this picture right here is a clip of that video. But what we did in the company is we donated services for a full year for free to veterans. So right around Veterans Day, ramping up to that was a big social media campaign. You could donate, or you could basically submit a veteran's name. We did a live drawing on Facebook. So this is me actually walking into this couple's house and actually surprising them with a certificate for free services. But that was intertwined in our culture, and that was part of the alignment. We gave back. We wanted to be part of the community. Really cute. He was an infantryman and she was a nurse. I think in World War II they had met, but it was cutest couple. But that aligned with people. Like when people saw that video, we actually had an in-person interview. Oh, my mom or dad's in the military. My grandfather's in the military. It was really cool that you did that. I really would like to be part of a company that respects that. So some of the stuff we did, we really wanted to intertwine and actually reinforce that culture.
Yeah, I love that. So I talk a lot about matter, meaning, measure, and autonomy, and bringing those four things into your business. And this is the meaning piece. A lot of people struggle with how do you bring meaning into, it's like a house cleaning job or lawn care or whatever, right? It's how do people find meaning in that? Well, here's a perfect example.
Yeah.
You're giving back.
And I see something else going on here too, because I think for the longest time, companies would think about marketing and building brand and all of that on the, this is how I get customers, like in a silo, and how do I recruit and, get employee engagement and all that being in a silo. But I think you're demonstrating here that there's a ton of work that overlaps on both sides. Like this is building culture inside of your business, and this is also generating, a brand and generating demand for your service in the community at the same time.
Yeah, and it wasn't purposely to drive business, but I will tell you, once this went live in a few weeks, it caught a lot of views on Facebook. That phone was off the hook. Like, we had a lot of military personnel calling us for work, and that wasn't the purpose of it. But like you said, it just comes full circle.
So, I think there's an opportunity when we're thinking about developing marketing pieces, be it for, getting more clients or being it to recruit, to get more employees, to be thinking about, how can I make this dual purpose? How can I take this, burn these calories one time and use it for both sides of that equation?
Yeah, and the last thing I want to leave you with here, and before I forget, I do want to talk about the retention piece, because let's face it, these employees aren't going to stay with us forever. But I've got a great book I think everybody should look at, read, or listen to. I'll bring that up in a minute, but I think it was pretty instrumental when I found this book. But basically, the idea is that I like to call it our virtual bench, like that sports team. But when you automate it, and this is our manual process before we automate it, this is how we automate it. But I don't want to focus on the automation piece today. I want to focus on the actual employee part. But what we're looking at is, you've got a hosted landing page on your website, an office form, and probably a bot or something on social media, depending on where they're coming. But we want to focus there on that job description that fits that culture there. And once we drive them through that online application process here, so they come in, they drive through an online application process. There's some virtual hoops I'm suggesting that we potentially run them through. And if they meet those qualifications, we're going to go in here and basically set up something through like a Calendly or something, an automated time to go in and get that virtual or in-person interview. But when we go into that interview, we've got a standardized interviewing package, and we want to interview and screen for those alignments. So before they get to the interview, my admin would call in this process before they would actually set up the interview, or if they hit like a Calendly link, we'd call and actually do a pre-screening interview. But that's where the questions like, hey, how do you feel if this happens? Or tell me about some time that made you feel like this. So if you meet that alignment, then you're going to go to the standardized interviewing package. And this is where I think it's important, is we need to build that virtual bench. So if you're not constant recruiting at least 2 to 3 times a week, I don't think you're doing it enough. We used to do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And there's something to be said. Even when I was an absentee owner, I would still go down to the shop and meet the guys and girls, and occasionally go to Paul, who was running the company at that time, like, hey, I'm going to be, and I would verbally say it to him loud enough so people could hear me. Hey, I'm going to be in the office most of the day. I've got interviews lined up all day. And they're kind of looking around going, well, wait a minute, we're fully staffed. So there wasn't the ability to get there and basically have that employee in that power situation. And if you had a 2-person team come in and one no-called, no-showed, and the other person blackmails you for a $2 an hour raise to finish that cleaning by themselves for the day, okay, you may make it to Friday, but I'm going back into my virtual database and I'm going to find your replacement. So that's why we really, even if we don't need anybody, I think we need to have that bench. But that standardized selection process, we're going to have 5 or 6 standardized questions we ask everybody. And the way we tackle is rank them A, B, and C. And inside the software, we created a database of all our A, B, and C applicants, with or without a driver's license. So we can go back to our virtual labor pool and hire from that. Oh. And then if we hire them, we drop them into a 2 to 3 part introduction to company culture, which eventually was automated. So as we got bigger, my culture indoctrination started to look like Paul, and not what we had originally built as a team. So we started to standardize that, because Paul had a great view of it, but that's not exactly what we were driving. When we created an automated process for tax document collection as well, or 1099 employees we had as well. But those are like the first things that the employee sees, like, wait a minute, we've thrown their PPE at them, hopefully their uniforms, we've got them trained, but we haven't even collected their payroll information. Like, they want to get paid. So when that first Friday rolls around, that paycheck better be there. So we created a process to make sure it was a smooth transition, and their employment contract was there. And then what we also tied in was video training. So all these other places we're competing with, the Amazon, Uber, Walmart, they have it. They've got multi-million-dollar training programs. So we've got to be able to come to the table and have a similar experience. So what I did literally is took an iPhone, about a $30 tripod, you can see behind me, from Amazon. It made videos how to do each service, low budget, but we had an automated onboarding video series. But that was a great first impression. And believe it or not, the professionally ones we had recorded, didn't work as well as the ones that were personal that they could relate to. But it was the onboarding experience, because it wasn't enough just to hire them, because if it sucked after that, they're second guessing, and especially now they're seeing those signs down the road, they're going to go somewhere else. And then we created some automations around the contract and handbook fulfillment, because all these things that should happen on the first day or the first few days, traditionally if we're really busy and we're scrambling for employees, they never happen. So that's kind of the process we put behind it. And the final thing we did is inside multiple softwares, this is a picture of one of them, we basically created that labor pool. So you can actually see all the applicants that are in here. And we went in and actually tracked client source. So it wasn't enough just to get them all in there, but I want to know, did you come from a Facebook ad? Did you come from another referral from an employee? Where'd you come from? And very similar to like a marketing standpoint, there was stark differences. Obviously, the ones that referred from existing employees lasted a lot longer. They were better fits. But if you're looking at like ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Facebook ads, or Craigslist, they had significantly non-emotional, drastic different results. So we started to build a marketing plan to actually go out and recruit employees based on basically sales acquisition costs. In addition, each one of those employees actually had a physical cost like a client based on the marketing source. So for us to give $250 as a referral to one of our employees, if the person lasts a certain tenure, was significantly cheaper than going out to one of the major platforms. But very similar like your marketing, you need different channels and spread out and diversify it. But we wanted to take the emotion out of it and actually have a hard number around it. So if we're going to double in size next year, we know like it's going to cost us $30,000 to actually recruit this person.
Another example of knowing your numbers, you knew the ROI out of all your recruiting channels. And a lot of times, if you don't actually crunch the numbers, you think some channels are working better for you than others because there's more activity. But as I say, motion is not necessarily movement. So if you got the numbers, you really know where to spend your money to hire the quality people that you're looking to get, and how much money that you need to spend in order to get the number of people you get.
Yeah. And I don't know what, go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say, and staying on top of continuing to look at those numbers, because when you first started looking at them, Indeed was just bringing in the employees, and then all of a sudden it's not working, but you're like, that everything's coming from Indeed. When was the last time you actually looked at the numbers? Yep. Where are you really spending your money, and where are you getting the results? Because that is not right. It changes.
Numbers talk, emotions walk at this point. That's what I found to be the most successful thing. You've got to just be a number-based.
I like that.
But one thing I do want to just share with everybody, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this book, but one of the cool things, I had the ability to go to Infusionsoft's headquarters and walk around. I became good friends with a lot of them. But when we were going through the company tour, and their culture is infectious. I mean, I don't want to say it's like a cult, but I mean, everybody's there has drank the purple juice. I mean, it's wild. I mean, they live and die the green of Infusionsoft. But with the interesting thing, there's two stories I wanted to share, and I want to tie this into this book, is as I was walking through, they had this big wall, and it was the dream wall. And you were encouraged to write your dream in there. And as long as you weren't becoming a direct competitor of that company, which obviously wouldn't have been a good fit anyways to be there, if you wanted to go on vacation, you wanted to get your college degree, whatever it was, you put it on there. And there's this gentleman named Dan Relf. He was their dream manager. Really, really cool guy. But his job was to take the employees and their dreams from the wall and help them execute on it and hold them to it. Because let's face it, especially now, our employees aren't going to stay with us forever. No. But if you want the most committed and employees that are going to basically be retained, if you can align your goals with their goals and help them attain whatever they want, they are going to be committed to you. And that was the most infectious part about this company. And this is something that we try to do in the lawn care company. Not 100% success, but pretty good. But we would find somebody that would traditionally last a season, maybe two. We're getting 3 to 5 years out of them. And that's huge in the service industry. But it was that alignment of where they wanted to go. And we had a lot of room to grow within the company. But if their goal was to, one guy wanted to become a cop. So we helped him basically get the funds to go to different training, and then had him like a gym membership because he had to pass a physical agility test. But all the things, like we started where is this guy going and how can we keep him for 3 to 5 years before he actually does what he really wants to do? but man, he gave us 110%. And he was an awesome, awesome employee. And he brought a lot of other guys and girls like him in. So the book I really highly recommend it's called The Dream Manager, and it's by Matthew Kelly. And believe it or not, it was actually written and focused on a janitorial cleaning company. So really, really cool book. But I really recommend it. It's on Audible if you're not into reading like me in the car, but it's a really good book. And then the second story I got around that employee retention is I was walking through the rest of the Infusionsoft. All the offices are glass. Somebody pulled out, there was a duffel bag on the table with about $4,000 or $5,000 cash in it. Kid you not. And I'd heard this story, but I didn't know it was true. Well, I assumed it wasn't true. Like it was a wise tale. But basically after your training period of say like 90 days or 3 months, whatever that is, they would sit you in the room before you signed your final contract. They would literally take this bag of money and stick it on the table in front of you. And they would actually cut you a check, but it was just to actually visually see it and say, are you committed to this company? And if you're not 100% committed to this company, we'll cut you a check for the $5,000 in front of you and be on your way.
I know Zappos was doing that quite a few years ago too. They started out doing that. It never really appealed to me because I know me. I'm taking the $5,000. I don't care what the company is.
But it's not necessarily the $5,000 though. This is where I'm going. Is there some way to screen them out?
Oh yeah, no, I
don't make sure that alignment. And when you start to see those flashing red lights, and you're like, "Oh, labor market's short. I just need to keep this individual. I got houses to clean."
Right.
Don't make the $125,000 mistake I made. You may need to keep them for a few days, but you got to go out and find that person and make sure there's that alignment and they're committed. Because otherwise they're going to run you out of business.
And that's such a good point, Mike, that you might have to. Sometimes you do need to bring on that person for a few days. You need a little bit of help. But just because they're coming on to help you, that doesn't mean you need to marry them. Right?
Yeah.
You date people, but you don't marry every single person you date.
It's tough. And we've been there. So I was telling you guys before the show, we had shortly thereafter that marketing spend, we had, I would say, a third of my company that actually staged a mutiny and tried to start their own company. I came in Monday morning and no one was there. And it's foolish me. I tried to jump out on that truck and do the work of like 10 people. And obviously that didn't work out. So what I should have done is actually went out and continued to interview and hire. But yeah, if you had a pulse and you showed up, like you were hired that day. But I think that might have even caused more damage than possible because we were losing clients because of the really awful service. We leveled them and said, hey, we're having a massive issue here. We'll be out next week while we're plugging the gaps. Like most of the people at that point probably would have been pretty understanding. Yep, that's it right there. Perfect, Tom.
All right.
Dream Manager.
Somebody brought this up, I don't know, last week or the week before, the same book. And if you're going to plug this book, Tom, then you also have to plug no, I can't think of the name of the show. I mean, the program. So there's a program, go to cleanprofitbuilders.com and you can purchase this program to implement this idea because
you have a certified Dream Manager. Very, very cool.
Oh, okay.
Product programs. Dare to Dream.
Love it. You can do that.
There you go. Yeah. And so
I'm posting all of this in chat, by the way. So
all right.
You guys can get all over it.
And so it's just a program to implement that sort of that idea.
Yeah. I forget who it was. There's was somebody at Martha Woodward's QDS conference a couple of years ago that actually is a certified Dream Manager in cleaning. I think she just exited within the last few years and retired from the cleaning business. I can't think of who it was though.
Are you thinking of Kathy Gage?
That's it, Kathy.
All right. Well, that program that I just showed you is the program that she created.
Yeah, definitely check it out. From what I've seen, it is awesome. So yeah, kudos to Kathy. I couldn't think of her name for the life of me. But yeah, very, very cool stuff. But we read that book and we instituted parts of that. And my wife actually brought Dan in she's an administrator for a school district. And they actually did dream management in with the teachers. And one of the teachers actually started a school in Africa.
Oh,
through this, like literally, they went through it and she did it, and that was kind of her fulfillment.
That was her dream. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think the school somehow aligned with it with educational stuff. So it's really interesting the stuff that you could get out of really investing and aligning with your employees.
I reached out to Kathy just recently seeing if I could get her to be a guest on Smart Business Moves. She's very busy making quilts right now. I haven't been able to negotiate her as a guest yet, but maybe this will be able to create a little extra motivation or pressure. This discussion here, this is good. We're at the top of the hour. Mike, awesome discussion, good information. Thank you for sharing your deck with us as well. This is your website. If people want to get a hold of you, I guess they've got a bunch of channels. They can click on a book a call, and I guess leave their contact info. You got your online chat going here.
Yep.
I'm sure that everything that you've shared with us here, if people need more details or help actually making it actionable and implementing it, this is what you guys do, right?
Yeah, and if they want to book a call, Dylan or myself on the team, we do basically a free audit for basically your workflow and automations. It's software independent, but basically what we do is we give you a free report at the end of it with graphics and everything. It's a really cool process. It's about a 30-minute call, and we literally expose scaling that 7-figure business or beyond, what the pain points are and what's the biggest bottleneck to where you're at, and actually how to fix it yourself. And it's something we do. Obviously, we can show you what we can do, but the idea is to just really go in and figure out where you're at, where's the pain point, and how do we kind of blast through that bottleneck or that hurdle. So that's something, if you book that call, it's a 30-minute free audit that Dylan and I have been doing. We've done several hundred of them, but they've been very helpful for folks just to kind of understand, hey, is it a systems issue, is it an automation issue, is it a production rate based estimating system? Where are all those things, and where's the weaknesses?
Very cool, Mike. Very cool. I hope that people take advantage of that, because that's one of those places where we think we know everything, but sometimes we just need to get out of our own way and go hook up with somebody else that can help us out.
So, are we pretty much done for the week, I guess, right?
Yeah, we're late today. Sorry, everybody. We have been running late. We're sorry. We'll do
I
better.
got Robin here. I haven't seen you in a while. Hello.
Hey, Robin.
Okay, so we're going to bounce. We're going to be back Monday, 5 o'clock Eastern. We're going to be picking up the discussion on the whole employee retention thing.
Retention, yeah.
Lots of talk there. Thanks again, Mike.
Yeah.
Much appreciate it.
Appreciate what you guys do for the industry. Really, really helpful. I love the knowledge share and just being open to help everybody. So really appreciate having me on, and hopefully share some knowledge.
Thanks, Mike. We'll have you back.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.